Are you a new player that's starting out his Genshin Impact journey? Or are you a returning player at low adventure rank and you're coming back and you want to get into the game, but everything just feels so overwhelming? This is the video for you. What's up, everyone? How you guys doing? Today, we're just going to go through like 10 basic tips. Sorry, my nose is very itchy. I don't know why my nose is itchy. Here are 10 tips that I've come up with to help newer players, so those who are either returning or who just joined the game, and yeah, just give some tips on how to get through the early game experience so that it can help you with or not really help you but make progressing in the game earlier. Well, for this, let's run back to Mondstadt because that's where everyone starts off with. Let's first talk about the banner, all right, or the first point, which is about standard wishing. I made a whole video about the wishing in Genshin Impact, but there's one point I just had to reiterate again from that video, and that is to not use Primo Gems for wishing on the standard banner, which is this one, the one that you see with Chi on the tab. The reason is because you can use that same currency for wishing in on the limited pools or the limited banners, and yeah, like there's no point in wishing using them, because think about it, Primo Gems are currency that you take a lot of effort to obtain, either by playing the game, going through Spiral Abyss, I don't know, like completing reputation or events. So these are all very premium, and it is a shame to use them on this banner where there's only like 7 limited like 5-star characters and everything. Well, like 7 standard banner characters. And yeah, if you wanted them, you get them if you lose a 50-50 on the limited pool. So like I don't think it's much of a worry for you if you actually lose on that. Because while some of them are still like decent, not everyone is like game breaking that you need to pull. Not like in like HSR where like people still say like, oh, Bronya is pretty good. Right? So yeah, first thing I would say, don't use the Primo Gems on this banner. Now the second one, okay, this is more of a tool that you can use to help you in the exploration. Because while Mondstadt is pretty small, right? You see that from Lyria onwards, it starts to get pretty big. You go to Inazuma. Sumeru is notorious for being hard to explore, and Fontaine, they're all very big places, right? If you really want to explore, or you want to like collect stuff or hunt mobs for your materials, there's actually a website that I would recommend you guys on. That is the Hoyo Lab. So just to go to hoyolab.com, you log in. In the Genshin Impact tab, you'll notice this, which is what we call the Tevat interactive map. And it's basically a map for you to use that can pin everything that you want, right? So let's say if you want to hunt, let's say in this case, like Navia, I want to hunt for the mobs that drop Ascension materials or talent materials. You know, that's like everywhere. I can go and farm for it. Let's say I want to go and explore and collect some of the drops or some of the materials. There it is as well. So it definitely helps out with your exploration tremendously. So because you have so many characters and the game's always expanding its overworld, it can get very hard for you to really remember where is where. And so I highly recommend all of you use the Tevat interactive map for your exploration needs. With that being said, point number 3, I will recommend players to collect as much of the Anoculus, the animal oculus, and the oh my goodness, these are so hard. Or the Geoculus, right? So I'll recommend everyone go and collect this. Why? These help you level up your the statues of the 7 of each region. So for example, in Mondstadt, it'll be the animal ones, Geo, Inazuma will be Electro, so on and so forth. For Mondstadt and Lyria in particular, leveling up your statues of the 7 gives you stamina. All right, at the start of the game, you get a limited amount of stamina. And you may find that it may be a chore to play the game with little stamina because you need to climb mountains, you need to dash when you fight. And so I highly recommend that you try to level it up as much as possible, as early as possible, so that you're able to max out your stamina. I think that max stamina is about 240. Can't remember what's the number that you start with, but once you have maxed out both regions, you'll be able to fully explore, right? Because when you start off, you tend to have lesser amount, and there's not, like I said, monster is pretty small. But when you get to like places like Liyue, Sumeru, where there's a lot of climbing, you may find that you either need to constantly stop at certain places, or you may have to there's some places that you may not be able to climb due to the lack of stamina. Speaking of stamina, one thing I like to recommend, some of us, we are very used to dashing, right? Traveling by dashing. But do you know that if you like sprinting, sorry, that's what happened was just what we did was just sprinting. But do you know that if you were to just dash, it actually saves up a lot of stamina, or it's actually more stamina efficient. At the same time, if you are, some people have already tested this out. Dashing is actually faster to travel than sprinting. Maybe it's because you are able to use your stamina over a longer period of time, so that's why the travel distance is much longer. That could also be the case. But yeah, I would highly recommend that for players coming in, that you don't need to always hold your sprint button. Dashing is actually pretty fine, right? So you either dash with your right click or with the shift button. Now, let's talk about dailies. All right. Once you reach a certain level, I think AR10, you're able to do the dailies, which is the commissions. All right. Genshin has kind of changed it a little bit, where you don't just have to do the 4 reputation quests, right? So, in the past or even up to now, right, the 4 quests you can do in the overworld, it's either set to random or the other 5 regions. I highly recommend to have it to set to a region, because random you could have one in like Mondstadt, one in Fontaine, one in Inazuma. A lot of traveling back and forth. Whereas like you set it to a region, I think it helps a lot with exploration. And there's some quests that are actually very close to each other. Now, they've changed it a little bit where you could actually get rewards from this thing called the encounter point stage system. Basically, by playing the game, so your quests, your story, like all the different kinds of quests, collecting stuff like your Oculus, opening chests, taking part in limited events, help count towards this as well. And then once you are done, you can go and claim rewards at Catherine, where they'll give you 20 Primo Gems, some gold, some levels for your character's companionship, and also some materials as well. So once you're done, you just go to Catherine, and she'll hook you up with your rewards after you finish. So yeah, like I said, it's an earlier game, you'll be doing quite a bit of exploration, so obviously it'll count. I think each of the points count towards 10. So over here, right? So every quest they do gives you 10 Primo Gems. So don't worry about it, because every time you also do one encounter reward, it's also 10. So it adds up. It can't speak. It adds up. All right, so it's the same number of rewards, so don't worry about it. Now, number 6, reputation. So in every region, there is a reputation system. All right, so in this case, let me just show you on the map. Right, in Mondstadt is over here. It is with this logo. So in Mondstadt, Hertha is going to be the one that deals with you. And there are technically 4 ways to level up your reputation. First one is by doing quests, so like the quests that you do in the game. The second one is by exploring the world, so collecting chests, your Oculus, and so forth. And then in the third and the fourth, which can be done weekly, are 3 requests and 3 bounties. So request is pretty simple. Some of them will be like, oh, I need like this item. It's like, oh, this place has given the monsters in this area has been terrorizing us. Can you kill them? Bounties, and so that's the quest, right? Bounties, there are 3 levels to it, as you can see, 3 to 5 stars. And then they'll tell you like, oh, this is a monster, I need to dispatch of it. And of course, they have the varying degrees of buffs or debuffs. So in this case, you can see this rune grader. He cannot be hit by hydro animal, but he takes extra damage from electro. So these are, and it gives you like 100 points towards the reputation. And of course, it varies between the levels. So of course, go ahead and see what suits your team and go ahead. Right, you don't always have to do the hardest one. And I said this, you can do 3 of them per week. This counts towards your battle pass. All right. The reason why I bring this up is because in Liyue in particular, Liyue, which is over here, right? Liyue's one is very particular because at level 3, you get this thing called, you're able to craft this thing called the condensed resin. And that comes to our second part, which is about resin. Over here, you can see I have 87 resin out of 160. It usually takes about 18 hours to cap your resin from 0 to full. And yeah, you go to your resin, try to spend it every day. You can do it by 3 ways. No, 3 ways. There are a few ways to do it. First way, ley lines. So you see these things over here, they are ley lines. You can either get gold or materials or XP materials from them, depending on the color. So this is gold or the blue one. The second one is from farming bosses in the overworld, which takes 40. The third one is domains. All right, so either your artifact domain or your weapon domain, your weapon material domain, or your talent ascension material domain. So don't be confused by it, don't worry. All right, what's going to happen is that your domains, as you can see over here, the varying domains and stuff. So yeah, artifact, weapons, and talent. Okay, so for these 3 plus the ley lines, it costs 20 each per run, while the bosses cost 40. The only exception would be the Trowns, which is 30, but that's only once per week. Once per week per weekly boss. But let's say you're a little bit busy, right, and you don't want to go and farm. What you can do is that you can convert 40 of that resin into, so let's say into this thing called condensed resin. You can hold up to 5 at one time. And so by doing this, I can condense it, and I can use this on another time. So remember those ley lines and domains and everything that I was telling you about? If you go and farm for them, once you are done them, right, you have 2 options, either to use 20 resin or to use a condensed resin, which, because it effectively is 40 resin, you get double the rewards. And it saves a lot of time. It saves half the time. The only downside is that you have to collect crystal flies. Like I said, you use the interactive map to collect crystal fly cores that is used to condense this resin. Right, so yeah, that's resin. I'm not going to talk about like efficiency or what to farm and everything. That can be a separate video. But briefly, I would say that when it comes to resin, especially for early game players, I would spend them mostly on talent and weapon materials, and also essential materials from bosses. I think that early game, you should not be farming from artifact domains. Why this? Ooh, my camera is a bit blurred. Why this is so is because talents are guaranteed stat boosts. So let's use Toma. That's my Toma. Let's use Toma as an example, right? If I were to level his skill up, it is a guaranteed increase, right? However, artifacts are random. All right, artifacts are random. They give you every artifact you get a random stat, and sometimes they will not give you the stats that you want, right? Whether it's the main stat or the substats. At the same time, before your AR45, you're not guaranteed a 5-star or a gold drop for an artifact. That's what I mean by 5 stars, this golden color. You're not guaranteed it until your AR 45. And granted, you can say that the 4 stars are also pretty okay, but imagine how it feels to spend 160 resin and not get a drop of do not get a drop of this of a 5-star artifact, or someone who is already AR 45 gets 5-star artifacts. It will feel really bad, and it feels like your energy spend has not been very efficient. So that's why I wouldn't really recommend it. Um, until then, like I said, if you're limited resources, you shouldn't be doing that. The additional thing is also about this thing called fragile resin, which is you can get from the battle pass, right? So basically, it gives you 60 free resin. Basically, that's it. And I only use this once your AR 45 as well. All right. Now, so yeah, that's about talents and artifacts. I would say early game, go for your talents first, then your artifacts. Right? I think the free overworld artifacts are actually not that bad. There's some that are pretty trash, but in general, I think there are some that are pretty decent. For example, the Berserker set, right? It's actually pretty good. Instructor, even up to today, and gameplayers are using it because it's pretty great. Even the Exile for its 2-piece, the energy for 2-piece energy recharge is also pretty good as well. And of course, once you have explored and everything, then you're able to get to AR 45. You're then able to farm for better artifacts. So yeah, artifacts is something that a lot of people grind for in the late game, but for early game, I think you shouldn't be that worried about it. I think whatever you get in the overworld from mobs or even chests are actually pretty decent and can help you get through the early game pretty easily. Now, let's talk about team building a little bit. This is pretty brief, and I won't go into a full guide on how to team build. But you notice something, right? I have this thing called an elemental resonance. What this means is that when you have 2 characters of the same element, that party gets a boost. In this case, because I have Zhongli and Navia on this team, I have this thing called the Enduring Rock. It boosts my shield strength by 15%, increases the damage for those who have a shield, and also shreds the defense by 20%. This is pretty good. This is something that are pretty important to the core of a team because it gives different benefits depending on the reactions that you're playing. So for example, let's look at this team, which is the Quick Bloom team with Alhaitham and Nahida. Because of the double Dendro, I get additional elemental mastery, which for those of you who are unaware, is very crucial to many Dendro related reactions. At the same time, we also have things like a freeze team where you want double cryo, because this means that you get an additional 15% crit rate for free. You don't know how hard that crit stat is to get. Give you free crit. And of course, things like even Electro, right? Double Electro is pretty good as well. Double Hydro, like this team, right? You get additional HP, a lot of Hydro characters scale on HP, double Pyro skills on attack, so on and so forth. So take this in the note. Of course, if you can't, you can only have 1 per element. There, you can also increase this, but generally in certain compositions, you actually want this. And like I say, you don't have to always go for it, because when you have this, it's also fine. But there's certain compositions, especially for freeze teams, where you actually want a double core of a certain element, so they can get the boost, and it helps a lot with team building sometimes as well. Now, lastly, let's talk about character stats, and briefly for a newer player. If you're a newer player, what are some stats that you want to look out for? Generally, I think the one stat that a lot of new players get sucked into for the wrong reasons is crit. For me, I played this game for about 3 years. Right, I started before Inazuma. So obviously, I played the game for a long time. I'm able to build my stats. But for a newer player coming in, crit isn't that important, because I would say that energy recharge is the most important stat you should look out for. Here's why. Energy recharge relates to having your ultimate come back faster. The higher energy recharge, when you receive energy, it basically multiplies and counts your points higher to fill up your burst gauge. Right, your burst gauge is the one that's over here. if you're a new player coming out, especially depending on the characters you play, you may be very reliant on your ult going off very often, and so with that, um, there are times where you want to actually build up more ER, energy recharge, to help your characters go forth and do more damage. So like characters like Xiangling, who's very ult dependent, you actually want to build energy recharge on her. Especially like I said, Xiangling, a character they get very early in the game, and it's better for her to ult like every 2 or 3 turns, or every 2 or 3 rotations, than for her to ult every 5 rotations. It feels very bad. It feels very clunky for some characters to use. For guides on what ER to meet for these characters, there are many videos online by other content creators that you can go and check out, and I will highly recommend that for your starting out, you focus on like energy recharge. And like obviously you don't need to have at 200 energy recharge, but having it at like 140 as opposed to 100 can cut your recharge time by quite a big amount. So yeah, I think that's something that you need to take note of. I think when people build their characters with the artifacts, because crit gives the big numbers, but when you're a lower player, you don't have the resources to build the big numbers. And so I think that's very important going as you start progressing the game. Once you start getting your 4-star and 5-star artifacts, then maybe you can consider building crit and attack and whatever stats you scale off of. But that's about it for today. I really appreciate you guys coming in. I'm sorry I have a little bit of a cold, so if I sound sick, it's because I'm a little bit sick. But I really appreciate you guys coming through. Once again, thank you for the support over the past few videos. If you have anything, please leave in the comments. If you like this video, thumbs up, share, comment, subscribe, everything. I also stream live on Twitch. Check the link in the description below. And I'll see you guys next time, hopefully when I'm better. Other than that, stay healthy, stay safe, be good to yourselves. Stay healthy, stay safe, be good to yourselves and the people around you. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.